Hi everyone, I am here in Pristina and I am in front of the newborn sign. What I'll do, I'll get closer when there's fewer people. They just got here, so I'll give them a bit of time. What's interesting about the newborn, it's not a memorial, the newborn sign, is that, well, it's made because I guess Kosovo is like a newborn country in that it's really recent. It's debatable whether it's even a country still. Our guide was telling us that it's only been beat by South Sudan, but they still see themselves as like the baby of Europe, like the newborn country of Europe. What's kind of cool though is that every year they paint the sign differently and under a theme. So there was one time where it was all clouds with barbed wire and the whole sign was painted that way. And this year they painted it in environmental sign. And what's kind of cool is that each letter stands for something and is painted accordingly. So yeah, I'll get closer maybe towards the middle of the video, maybe towards the end of the video to show you a bit more. But today was quite a good day. I decided to chill in bed for a bit. So I really got up around 8:30 and really left at 9. And I started visiting before I even knew it because, well, I left and even right now it's really cold. It's 0 right now, maybe even less. It was 0 last time I checked. And today it's just like leaving the hostel. It was quite cold, so I wanted to visit a little bit before the tour, but then I saw that it just wasn't a good idea. So because it was so cold, so I decided to warm up with at a coffee shop. It's just that I don't really like coffee, so I tried to remember which one I liked, and I was like, it's the one with chocolate and coffee together, and I think that's a frappuccino. And so that's what I asked for. I was like, can I have a frappuccino, please? And he's like, okay, do you want the whipped cream on it? And I was like, no. And then he's like, okay, well, that's called a macchiato. I was like, oh, okay, can I have a macchiato, please? He's like, yes, just for future reference, like if that's what you want, call it a macchiato. So now I know. And what's kind of interesting about that is that later on during the tour, during the visit, the guide told us that Pristina is known for macchiatos. So yeah, I did it. I'm so good. Then what else was there? So then I went out and met the group at the National Theatre, which really isn't a pretty building, but that's where we met. And there were 2 guys waiting there. So one was from Brazil, one was from Germany, but they both live in Vienna, so they were traveling together. And so we chatted for a little bit, but then they went to get coffee, and then 2 ladies joined us. And then it was kind of funny that one of them, I was like, I think I've seen her somewhere, and it's happened several times now during this trip that I've seen people before. And so I was like, okay, where have I seen her? I was like, I think it's Albania. And so I kind of look at her and I was like, were you in Albania? And she's like, oh, right. And she's like, you were there like the day of the earthquake. I'm like, right. She's like, okay. And then we were like, okay, we did the walking tour together. That's how we know each other. But it was quite a big walking tour, so yeah. And we didn't really talk at all during that walking tour, so it makes sense that we didn't know. So yeah, we decided, no, we didn't decide anything. And then a Turkish lady came to join us as well. So we were a group of 6, and then plus the guide. And yeah, we started the tour. So 5 things I learned during this tour. One is that Pristina has a clock tower. It just hasn't been working. It's just had really bad luck, and even now it's not working. So what happened is the Ottomans brought it from Moldova, but as soon as they brought it, the equipment kind of broke and it didn't work. And I think they asked somebody else to repair it, and it broke down. And then I'm pretty sure he said the French came in and tried to make it, and then it broke again. So yeah, no luck. And so now it's broken, like all the handles say different times. They just kind of gave up. The second one is not as nice and friendly. It's about the museum. So there's a museum in Pristina about like archaeology and like history. But what happened is during the late 90s there was a war with Serbia, and when Serbia left Pristina, they just took everything from the museum with them, which left a very empty museum. And it was only in the 2010s, I think he said, that Pristina kind of called the surrounding community saying like, hey, does anybody have anything we can put in this museum? And they gave things, they gave what they had, and so now there are things in the museum. That was the second one. Third one, oh right, so the relation with Europe is very interesting. Well, first of all, I'll tell you a bit later, but we went to see a Bill Clinton, not memorial, but like Bill Clinton statue. And it's just because they see the US as the ones who like gave them independence, who helped them be independent, since basically the US intervened on their behalf. And so they see it as like a big ally. And so they have George Bush Street, they have Bill Clinton Street, they have Marilyn Albright statue, and then Bill Clinton statue. Like, they're very pro-American. There's American flags a bit everywhere. Like, they're like, I think he even said like, we're quite pro-American. So that's kind of interesting. But the relation with Europe is quite an interesting one as well. In that, so their currency, the money they use, is the euro. The only thing they can't do is they don't print it, or they can't make it, but that's the currency they use, is the euro. There we go, newborn. So yeah, but he's like, we're not part of the Eurozone, but we still use the euro. So yeah, I thought that was quite fun. And he's like, we also have a day off for Europe Day, which is, I think he said May 4th, I could be wrong. And he's like, yeah, we get the day off. Nobody else in Europe gets the day off, but we do. So it just sounds like they're really trying to be more European than Europe. Even though, I think he said individual European countries recognize them, but Europe does not recognize them. And he said that a couple of countries do not recognize them, and that's creating, like, because they need to be recognized unanimously by the European Union, and I think Spain is saying no, and I think there's another country that's blocking it. I can't remember which one. So yeah, that's their relationship with Europe. Then the third thing, oh right, we went to see the university library. What's interesting about that is that the architecture is unique, is how our tour guide put it, but the Australian lady, the one I had met before in Albania, or seen before in Albania, told us that it was on the list of the world's ugliest building, and it is quite up there. It was pretty ugly. So he told us that the architect tried to mix designs, or like mix cultures, and so he tried to put the Roman together with the Ottoman and do something. So he's like, okay, so you see, like, there's a lot of like squares, and so that represents the Roman architecture, and then above you have like domes that will let the light in, and so that represents the Ottoman architecture, and then you just have a beehive around it just because. So we're like, but oh, and so it's it's just an ugly building. I hope it's pretty from the inside. We didn't go in, but yeah, because it's just pretty ugly. Oh, I forgot to mention, so it's, I don't know if I'll count it as one of my facts, but during the visit, we also went by the Ethnographic Museum, which is where they have, oh, nobody's by the newborn sign. I'll go soon. They show us different houses at different times. So far they only have one house, but they're working on their second one. And so you see I think it's during Ottoman times, how a rich person's house would look like. And it was really cool. So you even got to go inside and see like what was where. And what I think was the take-home message is just, they were big into guests. Guests were a big deal. There's an entrance for guests and an entrance for the people living there. Guests have a bigger room than the people living there. When you eat, like you would eat in like the guest quarters, but the guests would have a little bench to sit on, and then the people living there would sit almost on the floor to represent that the guests are important. The guests would have a shower indoors. Like everything is made for the guests. And he said that no, it was just that's the way it is. Even in rural places, like when you had houses connected to each other, there was a door connecting both houses so that people could go from one to the other. So he said that was quite. Yeah, it's just they were very social people. Yeah, I'll show you the before my last fact. I know you're all very, very curious, Oliver, what's the last fact? Well, I will tell you. You just have to be patient because I do want to show you the different letters. So here, N, nature, R, recycling, O, maybe I'll step a little bit off. O, oxygen, B, biodiversity, a little lion and sheep. W is water. E is energy. And N is nature again. So yeah, I thought that was quite nice. And yeah, I think biodiversity is my favorite one. With the little elephant there. Aw, cutie. All right. So that was that. Right. So my last fact. I know you were like hanging on the edge of your seats. My last fact is that there's a cathedral in Pristina, and it's a Catholic cathedral, which is strange in a way because only 5% of the inhabitants are Catholics. But it's because Mother Teresa was ethnically Albanian, so they wanted to sort of be patriotic, and they made a cathedral called Mother Teresa Cathedral. And what's kind of interesting as well is that it's sorry, I think they're doing something there. What's kind of interesting as well is that the cathedral is only 3 years old, so it's only been open for 3 years. So everything is new. Usually when you go to a cathedral, everything kind of looks old, but this one, everything just looks new. Like it's made of marble, so it's really white, it's really bright, and so you have a stained glass, yeah, made for Mother Teresa. So you have her, but then there's one with Pope Benedict XVI and with Pope Francis. So the current Pope, which you wouldn't really get because all the churches are quite old, or the cathedrals are quite old. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that was where the tour ended, at the cathedral. So at the end, I kind of went ahead and asked people, I was like, would anybody want to go out for lunch? Like, I'm kind of hungry. If anybody would want to go somewhere, I'm happy to join. So everybody but the guide and the Turkish girl were interested, but they had decided, like, well, we'd like to go up the bell tower first, see what's there, like how the view, and then go eat somewhere. That sounded good to me. So that's what we did. And then at the place to eat, I had soup, and I had like a chicken casserole, and it was delicious. It was really filling, and it only cost me like €5.30. So it was really a good price. And it was like right next to the cathedral. It's not like I went, the cheapest place I could find. So that was quite interesting. And then the boys had to go to take their bus back to Skopje. And I wanted to go see the Bill Clinton statue. So with the two ladies, that's what we did. And then we tried to find postcards, and then they're in the same hostel as I am. So we went back to the hostel. And then we played cards, and then I decided that I want to go out, see what the city was like at night, see if there was any nice pictures to take. There really wasn't. But yeah, and that's about it for today. Tomorrow is my day I go to Skopje, so that will be really fast. It's 5 hours, I think it said, and it's relatively flat. I'll just need to wear my gloves because it's gonna get colder and colder. And Tuesday it's gonna snow here, apparently. So I'm just hoping it's not gonna snow where I am in Skopje, but we'll see. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for today. Yeah. All right. Bye.